Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be talking about the best teams in Genshin Impact that you should be using, and I'm also going to be including 4-star teams in this video, some free-to-play options that are also top tier and very strong. We're going to be covering many different teams, like about 10, and each time there's going to be footage on screen showing the comp in action while I explain how the comp works and how the characters synergize with each other, and I'll also try to include some replacements in case you don't have a few characters that are showcased in the team. And since I am including, as I mentioned, powerful 4-star teams, basically everyone, including free-to-play players, should be able to use a team from this video if they want to, and all the teams I'm going to be showcasing are more than capable of clearing even the hardest content in the game. Before I begin, I want you guys to know that I stream almost every night on Twitch. Link in the description if you're interested. Be sure to sub if you're new because it really means a lot. And with that being said, let's talk about the best teams in Genshin Impact. The first team I want to talk about in this video is probably the team I use the most and one of my favorite comps in the game. It is this Xiao comp right here, Venti being replaceable with Sucrose, where you're running Xiao with an Anemo battery, so again Venti or Sucrose, with Zhongli as a shielder and Bennett as your healer and damage amplifier with his burst. This comp is amazing and can clear basically any content in the game with ease because of how strong every character here is. Xiao is an amazing DPS that I rank insanely highly because his AoE DPS is insane. All of Xiao's damage is AoE, is multi-target. Every time Xiao plunges, he's going to be doing massive amounts of damage to everything around him. So if you're against 2 enemies, 10 enemies, 20 enemies, as long as they're close to you, you can hit all of them, clearing the content super easy. And since the hard content in Genshin right now is multi-target, right, like the Abyss has a lot of enemies, this team comp shines exceptionally well because it lets Xiao do what he does best, which is destroy a bunch of enemies at the same time. Venti or Sucrose can clump enemies up and act as the Anemo battery for Xiao, so it'll generate particles for him that he can catch to spam his burst. Zhongli's a staple in a lot of good teams, but he is replaceable if you don't have him with 4-star alternatives, but his role in this team is basically being a shield and a resistance shredder. He reduces the resistance of enemies, notably to Anemo, which is really good for Xiao. And he also has a burst that can petrify and fill in any gaps in your rotation. Lastly, Bennett is clearly amazing here because Bennett is Bennett. His burst will heal you and provide you with a huge amount of attack percent, greatly increasing Xiao's damage during his burst. And hopefully through the footage in the background, you guys can see why I love not only Xiao, but this team so much. It really makes a lot of content that's otherwise quite difficult, very trivial, because of how effective it is at clearing multiple enemies very fast. Lastly, since Xiao is a hyper carry, you can focus on investing into him specifically, meaning that the overall cost of this comp isn't as expensive as many others because you mainly have to invest into one unit, one hyper carry that is Xiao. I also briefly want to talk about another Xiao comp, which is an amazing team, Xiao, Jean, Zhongli, Albedo. This one is obviously 4 or 5 stars, so it's quite expensive. And I personally like the other team better because it has Bennett, who's a very, very strong 4-star. But this team works very well because Jean is your Anemo battery, and Albedo and Zhongli provide insane utility, good off-field damage via Albedo, and the Geo Resonance, which gives you more damage percent. And obviously Zhongli will also shred resistances. The next powerful team we're going to talk about is a Hu Tao comp, actually revolving around Hu Tao, Xingqiu, and 2 somewhat flex supports where I usually recommend Kea and Zhongli if you have them, and Zhongli can very well be replaceable. You can usually use a healer instead if you don't have them, or if you want a healer in the team. The way this comp works is basically Hu Tao is going to be vaporizing or melting every single charge attack she does. Xingqiu's rain swords are going to apply hydro. You press E on Hu Tao and every charge attack should vaporize. This will greatly amplify your damage, and on top of that, if you run Kea as well, you'll also get the benefit of sometimes freezing enemies or applying cryo to them, letting you melt some charge attacks and melt your burst. And now keep in mind, Kea doesn't apply cryo as fast as like Xingqiu applies hydro, so you're not going to be melting everything. You will be melting some hits, which is basically just bonus damage, and Kea is a good support overall, so very nice in this team. Lastly, the reason you can get away with not running a healer is because Xingqiu's rain swords actually heal you a bit, Hu Tao's burst also heals you a bit, and Zhongli gives you a shield, allowing you to not take much damage while you're DPSing. A couple clarifications and misconceptions about Hu Tao. First of all, you don't need C1 to be good. It is an amazing constellation, but you don't need it. I don't have it, and I've cleared every piece of content in the game with her. And while Staff of Homa is amazing, Hu Tao has so many good 4-star options, notably Deathmatch. Blackcliff Pole is pretty good too, and Dragon's Bane, especially with the refinement, can be amazing because it gives you elemental mastery and a great effect if you are vaporizing. Now I want to talk about one of my favorite teams in Genshin, and you've probably heard of this if you've watched my channel for a while. This is the Childe Xiangling comp. This team consists of Childe, Xiangling, Bennett, and the last character is Flex, but it's usually Sucrose. She can be replaced with Venti or Zhongli, but I like Sucrose a lot, and I'll explain why. First of all, the way this team works is Childe's going to be your on-field sort of DPS, dealing that hydro damage to multiple enemies, applying Riptide, and attacking very fast. And since he applies hydro so fast, it lets your Xiangling vaporize on every single rotation of her Pyronado. That means every single time your Pyronado hits an enemy, it'll vaporize, dealing an insane amount of damage. This is a comp where you have 2 units doing a lot, but overall Xiangling is the carry here, right? Childe still does a pretty good amount of damage, but Xiangling's is insanely high and the main character you're going to be investing in this team. And the reason why this team is so good is because every character here complements each other very, very well. Before I get into the details, you should know that Xiangling's burst snapshots. And no, this wasn't patched out. Snapshotting still works, and the way snapshotting works is basically it'll buff your ability, your Pyronado, for the whole duration with whatever buffs are applied at the start. So for example, if you use Bennett's Burst, Thrilling Tales, anything like that at the start of your Pyronado, and then you use it, the buffs will last the entire duration, even if they would normally otherwise expire. So even if during the last second of Bennett Burst you Pyronado, it'll buff your entire Pyronado. The reason that's so good is because you have so many buffs on your team. Sucrose gives you Thrilling Tales for attack percent, Elemental Mastery as well to your whole team, buffing your Vaporize damage, and Bennett's Burst is also a snapshotable buff, which will give you a ton of attack percent. And on top of that, Bennett acts as an energy battery for your Xiangling, generating pyro particles very, very fast for her so that she can spam her burst on cooldown, even without a lot of energy recharge. And since Childe's elemental skill has a long cooldown, what you do is you stay in it for about 15 seconds, and then during the downtime, when it's on cooldown, you're going to swap to your Bennett and your Xiangling, funnel particles for your Xiangling, so press E on Bennett and then swap to Xiangling and catch them on her, while you're simultaneously DPSing on her, dealing some damage with Xiangling, in order to get your particles back as soon as possible and have a pretty low downtime in your team. And if you need more information about the exact rotation, you can check out my Xiangling guide, but basically this team just works insanely well together, every character playing a huge role, Bennett giving you his burst and Noblesse Oblige as really strong buffs, Sucrose giving Elemental Mastery, Thrilling Tales, and Verdescent Venerer, reducing resistances of enemies, and then Childe is doing a ton of Riptide damage, applying Hydro very fast, and letting your Xiangling kill literally everything with her Pyronado. And I want to latch on another Childe comp to this section and not make it a whole nother thing. Basically, the Childe Fireworks team, which is Childe, Beto, Fischl, and a flex, usually healer like Bennett, is a very, very powerful comp. For the same sort of reasons, Childe attacks very fast, lets your burst supports, your off-field supports, apply their element and deal a lot of damage at the same time. So Beto's burst and Fischl's Oz and Fischl's passive / constellations will deal a ton of off-field damage while your Childe is attacking and allows you to clear literally everything very easily. The main thing to remember with this comp is that Beto and Fischl complement each other insanely well. Because of the way Beto's burst works, it's very good against multiple enemies, whereas Fischl is good single target, so together they can deal with anything. And on top of that, Fischl acts as a battery for particles for Beto. Beto is your sub DPS for Childe as well, and an amazing off-field support with her strong burst bouncing between enemies every time you attack with Childe, who does attack very fast. Before we get into the strong 4-star comps, it wouldn't be a sort of best teams video if we didn't talk about Ganyu, the best DPS in Genshin. Ganyu has 2 really strong teams that I want to talk about, Melt Ganyu and Freeze Ganyu. Now I'm going to show you both of the comps and then talk about them. The Melt Ganyu team is Ganyu, Xiangling, Bennett, and a flex character. I'm using Zhongli here. And this team revolves around Xiangling applying Pyro constantly with their Pyronado and being able to spam it on cooldown because of Bennett generating some particles and Xiangling running a lot of energy recharge in this team. Ganyu is your carry, dealing a ton of cryo damage and melting every single hit. Her AoE damage is insane, she has a pretty good burst, and her elemental skill taunts enemies. Basically, this team comp works very well because you're spamming Xiangling's burst on cooldown. The Pyronado is going to be applying Pyro to everything, and then Ganyu is going to be reverse melting most of her shots or whatever she can, which just multiplies her damage by 1.5 because that's how reverse melt works. Now, something to keep in mind is that this comp is kind of like a shotgun. It's pretty close range, which can be annoying if you're not running a shield, and that's why my last slot here is Zhongli. You can also use Diona or another shield character. And while you don't need a shield, I really like it and recommend it because I find it very difficult to play close range Ganyu without a shield because charging up your charge shots in that melee range can be very annoying. But overall, this comp is very high damage and will flat out just evaporate enemies, even if there's a lot of them, because of how Ganyu's AoE works with Xiangling's Pyronado. You can literally just hit everything at once. For Freeze Ganyu, I unfortunately can't show you it because I don't have it, but I highly recommend going Ganyu, Venti, Mona, and Diona, allowing you to spam all your bursts together, freeze all enemies in place, and deal insane amounts of damage non-stop. And if you are running a Freeze Ganyu, you can run a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer for 40% crit rate on just everything. And on top of that, since you are perma-freezing enemies, they're not moving, so you're not really in risk of getting your charge attacks interrupted. And once again, since I don't have Mona, unfortunately I can't show you this comp, but it is a very, very strong one. because of how Mona, Ganyu, and Venti work together. Now we're going to talk about some really powerful teams that are comprised of only 4-star units. These comps are still amazing and on the same power level as many of the others we talked about previously, but they're much more free-to-play friendly because they only use 4-star units, which again are very accessible. Before deep diving into new comps, the first one I want to sort of mention is one similar to the Childe one we talked about earlier, except you replace Childe with Xingqiu. So as you guys can see in this comp, it is a Xiangling Pyrocarry team, with Xingqiu being the Hydro Applier as she DPSs. A common variation of this comp is replacing Sucrose with Chongyun, allowing you to also melt as well as vaporize in this team, and both variations are very good and can be very strong 4-star options. I already covered most of the information of this comp in the Childe Xiangling section though, so I don't want to repeat myself, but this team also works very well. You snapshot Xiangling's burst with Bennett, you can apply Hydro very fast with Xingqiu, and you can also either use Chongyun or Sucrose as a great supporting character, Chongyun letting you apply Cryo, and Sucrose giving you EM, Thrilling Tales, and Verdescent Venerer. My favorite 4-star team, and the one that I find the most fun, is this one right here, a quick swap reverse melt team. This comp features Rosaria, Kea, Xiangling, and Bennett, all spamming their bursts together, letting your cryo characters proc reverse melt on pyro enemies, or even sometimes let your Xiangling proc melt herself. And basically your cryo characters are going to be doing a ton of damage to the enemies affected by Xiangling's pyro, and you're just gonna be swapping through your bursts, cycling through them. As you guys can see in the background footage, like I cleared Abyss 12 2 so fast, it literally even caught me off guard, even though I knew this comp was really good. Not only is this comp very fun, but it's also very free-to-play friendly because Kea and Xiangling are both free, and then Rosaria and Bennett are just 2 other 4-stars. And on top of that, the builds of every character are pretty flexible, same with weapons, and it is a quick swap team, which is tons of fun in my opinion. You spam your burst and your skill on every cooldown, constantly swap between characters. Also, keep in mind, these characters don't need much energy recharge. Since you're running 2 cryo characters and 2 pyro characters, they do generate particles for each other, allowing you to skim out on the energy recharge, running less, and letting you deal obviously more damage because you can build more crit and attack and stuff. Lastly, if you don't have Rosaria, before she came out, I would run Diona in this comp, 4 cryo particles for your Kea, and this could work. But Rosaria, if you have her, is much, much better. And you know, she is a 4-star, so quite accessible and what I recommend. The next team we're going to talk about is a Kea freeze comp, and there's a few different variations of this comp. I recommend Kea, Xingqiu, Chongyun, and then the last character, it can depend. If you have Bennett available, he can be a great option. Diona can work for a shield and some cryo particles, but since you are a freeze comp, you don't even need healing, so you can even run someone like Rosaria for more damage. And again, there are quite a few options for the last slot. Kea in a freeze team is very strong, and you can run him with Chongyun to make all of his attacks cryo, run him with Xingqiu to freeze everything constantly, and then you can run whatever you need in your last slot. In this example team I'm using, I'm running Diona for the shield and the healing. This team works very well with the 4-piece Blizzard Slayer set on Kea, giving him 40% crit rate. Then you also gain crit rate from the Cryo Resonance, allowing you to effectively not build a lot on your artifacts, allowing you to stack crit damage on everything because you get like default crit rate from, you know, the Cryo Resonance and your Blizzard Slayer set, allowing you to build a pretty good artifact set a lot easier. On top of that, this comp is very cozy. As you can see, like you're freezing everything, so you're not really taking much damage. Everything's frozen. You can just constantly DPS by using all your abilities together and then auto attacking on Kea with your cryo attacks from Chongyun's field. Obviously, the way this comp works, if you don't know, is you use Xingqiu's burst for the rain swords, Chongyun's E for a cryo field, and then you use Kea's abilities and just auto attack, and then it'll freeze everything and deal a pretty high amount of cryo damage. Keep in mind if you want to use a freeze comp for physical Kea in like Abyss 11, because Abyss 11 gives you a physical damage bonus, you can. I just wouldn't run Chongyun, and I would run a physical goblet. Next up, I want to talk about a Razor comp, which I really like. This is my favorite 4-star Razor team, and Razor has very flexible support, so if you do want to fit in any 5-star characters like Zhongli or many others, you can, but I really like this team comprised of only 4-star units. In this comp, you run Fischl with Razor, acting as an electro battery, meaning you need literally like no energy recharge, and she's a great off-field support, significantly buffing your single target damage. Xingqiu also gives you those rain swords and lets you proc electro charge on every hit, with Fischl spamming that reaction non-stop, and both acting as very strong burst supports. As you guys know, Razor is a very selfish DPS. When you use your burst, you want to stay on him for a while, so having good off-field supports that have abilities that last a long time, like Fischl's Oz and Xingqiu's rain swords, are crucial for a strong Razor team. Lastly, Diona fills the last slot, being a strong superconduct support, because you do want to proc that reaction to reduce physical resistance of enemies. And I think Razor is a very strong 4-star and free-to-play friendly carry, because he's very good at most stages of the game, and he's really good in the current Abyss, and some of his optimal teams only require 4-star units that synergize very well together. On top of that, Razor has very good options for every player, right? I believe Serpent Spine, which is the Battle Pass option, is insanely powerful, but if you don't buy the Battle Pass, if you're free-to-play, he does have a great free-to-play option with the Prototype Archaic, which can be used as a replacement. And so the point of this video was to show you guys the strongest teams in Genshin Impact and also give you some of the strongest 4-star comps, really good options for every player, so that no matter whether you're a free-to-play or like a whale or anywhere in between, you can find a really strong comp for you with the characters you enjoy. That's also one of the beauties of Genshin Impact. There are so many strong characters, so many good teams, that there's a lot of diversity. Basically, you can play the characters you like. And I did make a conscious effort to include multiple different teams of different characters, so not always like Ganyu, not always Xiao. A lot of good different DPSs so that you can play the characters you like. Also, keep in mind that every team in this video is really strong and I have full cleared Abyss with, so all these comps can do it. And many of them do have replaceable options if you don't have them. Like for example, Zhongli is an amazing support, but most of the time you can replace him with another character. It's just that usually Zhongli offers more than his replacements, but it's still not the end of the world if you don't have him. Same with a lot of other characters. Anyways, this was a new type of video, so let me know if you liked it or not. I will be reading most comments just, because I appreciate the feedback. Also, while you're at it, let me know what you want to see next because ideas always help. Feel free to follow me on Twitch, join the Discord, all that stuff. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed and I'll catch you guys in the next one.